Today we're going to be making some beautiful ivy leaves. Let's get started. Are you ready? So we need some gum paste. This is the homemade Nicholas Lodge gum paste recipe. It is really easy to make and I really recommend making your own. You don't have to. You can absolutely also do store-bought gum paste. These are not very thin petals, so store-bought gum paste will do just fine with this. And I've always got a little container that I can put my gum paste underneath and just keep it on the side like so it doesn't dry out. So this will keep and protect it from the air. Then we need a rolling pin. You can also use a pasta machine, but you always need a rolling pin from the beginning in any case. A little cornstarch pouch. Look at this, how freaking cute is this? So there's some cornstarch in here and it's a baby sock. So we can just dust a really nice amount of cornstarch on our surface. And I always use these awesome flip files, because these ones have a rough surface, so you must just be careful that you don't get ones with a slidey surface like this. It doesn't make a noise, but this one, it's got a little bit of texture on it. And then I put a non-slip mat underneath, and then I can roll out on here and put all my petals and keep them safe. Then we need a whole bunch of cutters. So I've got a set of these cutters which work quite well. Unfortunately, these plunger cutters don't have a very small one, and I like having very small little leaves. So I have also bought this set which works really well, so that I'm going to be using that as well. And if you want, you can also use these metal cutters from Giovanna Smith Sugar Studio. I love her stuff. That's also where the veiner is from. It works extremely well. So we're going to need that, and we need a set of ball tools, some egg white in a cup, some shortening, wire cutters, and for the smallest leaves I'm going to be using a 28 gauge wire, and for the bigger leaves I'm going to be using a 26 gauge wire. Last but not least, we need a petal pad, just one of those guys, and we need some bumpy foam that we can dry our petals on. Let's get started. Are you ready? Drum roll please. First, what we always do with our gum paste is we knead it. That is super important. Just a tiny bit of shortening, and I'm going to knead it in until it's nice and stretchy and flexible. And then we're going to roll it out. Now again, you can do this on the pasta machine if you prefer that, but again, you always have to just squish it down so it actually fits in the pasta machine in any case. Okay, and we want to get it to about a millimeter's thickness. You can use a little bit of cornstarch if your rolling pin is sticking, so to about a millimeter thickness. That's a little bit thick on the sides. There we go. So this would be about a 4 or 5 on my pasta machine, but every pasta machine is a bit different. What you can also do is, if you want tinier leaves, you roll this all a bit thinner, and then you obviously won't stretch it as much. So that means that the leaves stay smaller. So I'm going to just show you that. I'm going to just, I know this is not ideal, but I'm just going to cut off a little piece here. Okay, I'm going to keep this guy at about a 1 mil thickness and put it away under my cover so it stays nice and soft. And this one, I'm just going to roll a whole bunch thinner, and you're going to see the difference in terms of the size of the leaves if you don't stretch the gum paste too much. So you can make different size leaves with the exact same cutter, but because you've rolled the paste a different thickness, the leaf will be a different size, which is great. Lovely. Okay, so let's start off with the smallest ones. So here's my cutter. I'm gonna just take my cornstarch pouch. I'm gonna just dab it in a little bit of cornstarch and scrub over. And last but not least, I always like to have a little scrub tool close by so I can peel out my paste. But this one didn't work quite so nicely. Okay, so again, dip into my cornstarch pouch. And there we go. We've got a beautiful leaf. Just stroke over it so you've got no frayed edges. And now we can just lift it out. I'm gonna just make one of each size for you with these, but this is the thinner paste, remember. So that's the thinner paste. Get rid of the excess, put it under your cover, and here's my petal pad. And the wires, we're gonna start off with a 26 gauge wire. We're gonna cut it into 1/8. So we don't need terribly long pieces of wire for these teeny tiny guys. For the bigger guys, it's nice to have a little bit more wiggle room. I don't know if that is even 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
There we go.
Wow.
Okay, so we've got our 26 gauge wire cut into 1/8, and I'm going to take a wire. I'm gonna grab my egg white, I'm gonna dip, get rid of the excess, insert, and give it a little bit of a squish. The wire is about halfway to 2/3 up the leaf. They don't have much wiggle room at the top, and it's gonna make sure we get a nice connection there. Alrighty, dip, get rid of the excess, insert. A little bit of cornstarch on my fingers and press so it adheres to the wire nicely. Now we're gonna grab our ball tool. For the smaller guys, we obviously want a smaller ball tool. So this is a small, medium-sized tool. And now we're going to just thin out the edges and try to keep those nice points with the leaves. Just thin out the edges. You can use a little bit of cornstarch if your paste is sticking. Mine is okay for today. It's quite cold here, so it's a bit stiffer than usual. There we go. Now we're going to grab our veiner. I'm going to insert my petal. So these ones are so small that if I put them down here, it's going to look so weird. So I like to oftentimes put them into the smaller sections here on the side. And then the nice thing is, you can actually do 2 or 3 at the same time. Close your veiner, give it a good impression, pressing down nicely, and there we go. We don't need much veining with these. It's great to have the veining for the leaves that are going to be gold, but the ones that are going to be green, we don't actually need that much veining because the veining is going to really be only visible through the scraping away, but we'll get to that later. So now that we've got these two, I'm going to just give it a little bit of a taco. So I'm just folding it almost in half, giving it a little bit of shape, and then we can bend the front downwards a little bit, or we can bend it up. We can just give it a little bit of shape, and then we're going to put it in our bumpy foam and let it dry. Same with this one. Give it a little bit of a bend. Maybe this one can fall backwards onto itself, and let it dry like this. So I just want to show you now the thicker paste, so I can show you the size difference between these and the thicker paste. Alrighty. Okay, into my cornstarch. Press down, wiggle, and make sure you get a nice cut. Same with this one. And I'm just going to make the medium-sized ones for you now as well. This paste is actually a little bit too thick because you can see these cutters are not very deep. So I'm just going to roll it up ever so slightly more on this side. Scrubby, scrubby, scrubby. Make sure you get a nice clean cut. Just scrape over it with your fingers. Okay, and now I'm going to just show you some of the medium-sized ones as well. I'm just going to show you this set for now, and then we're going to move on to the bigger guys with the other wire. And then I'm going to just cut out the bigger ones now as well, and the largest size I'm going to go for is this. So let's give it a cut. See, it's getting that center part. That's okay. And let's make a fat one. Oh, do I have enough space to even make one more? Let's have a look. Yeah. Hello, by the way. This is my face. Okay. All right, rest of the paste. Get it under the container and make sure it doesn't dry out. And same process as before. I'm just going to put these two under covers so they don't dry out. And for those ones, we're going to use the thicker wire. So the 26 gauge. We're still on the 28 with these guys. Okay, so dip, get rid of the excess. insert. Make sure we press it down a little bit so it can adhere to the wire. And last but not least, okay, and now because these are a lot thicker, you're going to see with the ball tool, it's going to actually make the leaf a little bit bigger than the one before. If your little corners disappear, you can always just give them a little bit of a pinch with your fingers. So we're just going to keep going. And for the bigger leaves, we can use a bigger ball tool, see what feels good to you and what doesn't distort the shape too much, and what's quick as well, that's important. Now to veining. It's a very repetitive process. So with this one, now that it's getting bigger, I want to have it at the bottom. So this is where I'm going to line up, so that these lines that converge and come to a point are at the bottom of my leaf. Press, and there we go. Look at that beautiful veining. And with these ones again, we can do 2 at the same time. Give it a good press. And here we go. So again, give it a little bit of a taco shape, make it interesting. And I'm sorry, I cut myself here yesterday. I'm so sorry. Sorry, it's rather gross. But yeah, I didn't want to have a massive plaster on my camera. I hope you don't mind. There's no blood, so don't pass out. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got our little leaves, and let's just have a look at the size difference between the small ones that we had the thinner paste and these ones. So can you see these are the thin ones that we made earlier with the thinner paste, and this is the same cutters. Look how different they are in size. It's wonderful. Okay, now we're going to put them aside and let them dry. Okay, now I'm going to show you the 2 bigger ones, and then it's your turn to just make lots and lots of your own little ivy leaves. Put on a series, enjoy yourself. It's a very repetitive process. After a while, you can pretty much do this blindly. Okay, and then this one we're going to kind of cut into 6 in terms of the length. So this is probably like 1.5 inches, 2 inches maybe. It's like 5 to 6 centimeters. That's a nice length. And this is the 26 gauge wire, not the 28. And I'm gonna grab my wire, dip, get rid of the excess, insert down the center of the leaf and dip, get rid of the excess, insert. There we go. Press down so it adheres nicely to the wire. We can now again take a little bit of a bigger ball tool and just thin out the edges. So with the ball tool, we're half on the paste, half off the paste, like an eraser. Nice and thin. Pinch the tips if they're not so nice and pointy anymore. Depends on you if you like them pointy. So I like pinching them a little bit. And now we're going to get our veiner, put our leaf in. With this, it doesn't really matter which way around you want to go, but if you want to be precise, the veins that are pressing in to the petal should be the top. So this is the ones that press into the petal. And give it a good squeeze. I'm not squeezing with these ones in particular all the way in the middle because that might pop the wire out. I'm pushing on either side and at the top. And here we've got a beautiful leaf. And on either side, at the top. And look at our beautiful, beautiful leaf. And now we're going to put it in our drying machine. And I'm going to just give it some interesting shape. You can even, with the bigger ones, you can even pinch and taco the other corners here at the bottom. And just give it a bit of shape and let it dry. Let it dry, let it dry. That was beautiful singing right there.
Nice.
Here we go. Maybe this one can go up like this. The way you're going to place it is the way it's going to dry. Okay, you want most of them to be the smallest petals, the least amount of the big petals. And you want to make quite a lot so you've got nice choices. Just pointing out as well that it is important. The paste is white. There is a reason for that. I know it seems counterintuitive making green leaves, but what we're going to do later is scrape into this paste so that we get those beautiful veins. And the wire is green, so we don't have to paint that. But you can use white wire if you'd like, but just make sure you don't use green paste, please. That is important. Let's set these aside to dry, and once they've dried, then we're going to meet back and we're going to assemble them into a nice long stem.